Mm-hmm. Hey, hey, hey. 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 I always be trying to do the most here, and then things never work out the way I want them to. I'm trying to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and it just refuses to go. So this is kind of where we are at. Hey, everybody joining. How about I cannot put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and so y'all gonna have to hear my phone go off because the phone. Oh, there we go. I can. There we go. Technology. This is going to be an interesting topic. I was actually surprised by the poll that I had about body count and whether body count mattered. I expected more people to say yes, and they did not. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a couple minutes and get myself sorted out here, make sure that I can hear myself on the other platforms, and then we will get right into it. I hope everybody's been having a good week and a good, I guess, end of summer now. It's end of summer, so welcome to fall and whatever fall is going to bring. I'm not a huge fan of fall, but I am a huge fan of fall weather. I don't mind the weather in fall, but I'm not a huge fan of fall because it means that winter is right behind it, and I'm not a fan of winter. So hold on, let me just make sure I can. Okay, perfect. So hey everybody, this has always been an interesting topic for me. Oh God, this is me with paper in my hand because I was wiping the screen. Give me 1 second. I'm like always doing the absolute most. Here we go. Okay, so body count. Body count and does it matter? According to the poll, body count doesn't matter. And I again was surprised by the poll because I hear so much conversation about body count, especially when it comes to women. Most people are not talking about the body count of a man. Like, let's be real. Like, I don't even know if most women are asking about the body count of a man, but there are a lot of people who feel like the body count of a woman does matter and should matter and is a determining factor of whether or not they should be with someone. I have to say, I don't know the body count of any of the men that I've been with. I don't know the body count of my husband. I don't know the body count of my daughter's father. I didn't know the body count of my 2 ex-fiancés. Include one who was raw. Like, I never thought to say to my ex-fiance, who was a former pro ball player, who was 6'9", very handsome, how many women have you slept with? It was never a conversation that we had, nor did he ever ask me how many men I had been with. It was just not part of the conversation. And we spoke about a ton of things, but that was just not one. We knew that we had each other past. I certainly know that he had a past. We had a conversation about his past. He told me about some of the experience that he had. He told me how some of those experiences shaped the man that he was. He told me about childhood experiences, going to university, playing Division One, from Division One, going overseas for several years, and what that experience was being, the big tall black man playing basketball right in front of tens and thousands of people, and then coming back home, and what that meant. Like, we talked about the impact of the sexual experiences, but we didn't necessarily go into how many people he had sexual experiences with, because as a woman getting with a man at that level and that caliber, I certainly didn't think it was 10. I didn't even think it was 20, but I didn't make it my concern. I didn't make how many previous women my man had been with my concern. My concern was health. Have you been tested? What are your results? Like, those are questions I think are reasonable questions to ask someone, because you come into, we're not virgins, right? We came into a relationship in our 40s. And so asking, when's the last time you had a health check? What was the result of your health check? Whether or not I could see your health check, whether or not you'd be willing to go and do a health check prior to us having relations. Those are conversations. I think those are grown conversations to have. But I do question what would have happened if we were in a relationship and body count was a determining factor of whether we should be together. How does that relationship progress if your past is going to determine whether or not you have a future? And I can understand body count mattering when that body count is going to potentially have an impact on your present and future. So a woman with multiple children by multiple men, her body count matters because her body count is potentially staring you in the face every day, right? The same with a man. His body count may matter if he is a man with multiple children, with multiple women, and that has an impact on your life. So I can understand body count mattering when there's an actual impact, when it's relevant, because especially when there are children involved, yes, it matters. But does it matter outside of that? Is it, I don't know. I think it's such a, I've heard men say that I had a man say to me that no self-assured man is worried about a woman's body count. If a man goes into a relationship with a woman, and especially an attractive woman, he would assume that that attractive woman has been with her fair share of men. And his concern would not be the number of men that she was with, but how she treated him, and even how she spoke about the men in her past, right? Like, that was more important than how many men she was with, because we all have a past. But I hear these conversations happening, and I start thinking about, if I had to judge a man based on how many women he had been with, how many of the men that I've been with would I have been in a relationship with? Probably none. If I really took my time and said to my daughter's father, my ex-husband, and the 2 fiancés that I had, how many women have you been with? And then use that number to say whether or not I should be with them, I wouldn't have been with any of them. And I personally wouldn't have been with any of them, because those are the men that all the women describe they want, right? Like, over 6 feet, over 6 figures, over 6, like all of that stuff. And even if they at that time weren't over 6 figures, they certainly were the man around town. Those are the types of men that I have had the pleasure of being with and dating and being married to, etc. My ex-husband was a staff sergeant in the military, like traveling overseas. And I mean, women love a military man. So I damn well knew he had been with his fair share of women. But the reality is, why are we worried about who they've chosen before you unless the impact, who they've chosen before you unless there's going to be an impact on your present and future? Why does it matter? What does it say about a person, whether or not they have been with 3 people in their life or 30 people? Especially if there is no remnants of that 30 people. It's one thing if a woman is having babies like souvenirs. This is what I like to say, right? Some women have babies like souvenirs. Every failed relationship, there's a baby for you, a baby for you, a baby for you. So it can remind them of their failed relationships. Yeah, that's one thing. But I don't see how body count matters if it's not impacting your present. Now, if I'm with a man and he's got 8 children with 8 different women, yeah, that's a problem, right? Like that your body count definitely matters because you were just out there irresponsible with your seed. That to me matters. Yes, if you are out there slinging peen, irresponsible with your seed, because what that would say to me is, okay, those were the 8 women who had your baby. It doesn't mean that there were only 8 women that you were raw dogging. So my thought is, wow, like that's an issue. So yes, that body count, that type of body count matters to me. You were being irresponsible. You were not protecting yourself. You were not considering the type of women that you were dating. That says to me a lot about your character, because you're out there continually making the same mistakes, not realizing the mistakes that you're making. Again, no discernment at all, just having sex with just anybody raw, with at our big ages, knowing that there are diseases out there that are killing people and things that can't go away, right? Like those are the matters. Like that's when body count matters to me. But if that's not the case, I don't see why I would want to sit down and have a conversation with a man about that. From a man's perspective, I also still don't get it. From a man's perspective, I would love a man, if any of you want to share your thoughts with me, to tell me why you feel as if how many men a woman has been with. Again, if there are no babies because of that, if she has no diseases, if she hasn't slept with any of your boys, if she's not the neighborhood hoe, if all of those things are not a part of her past and or present, why does it matter if she's been with 3 men or 30? Right? Like I can understand if she's an OnlyFans girl, or back in our day, doing porn, and that stuff can be seen everywhere and people can just Google whatever her stage name was and pops up and there's your girl getting pummeled by a bunch of men and a train being ran on her. Yeah, okay. That I get. But if this woman has gone forth and lived her life and had experiences, and now you guys get together and she's with you and only you, why does it matter? I want to understand the psychology of the body count situation. Because, when Rob and I were together, that was a conversation that we had. And again, we never asked each other, but we would, hear these topics, and we were flabbergasted by the idea that people were using, especially men were using it as a determining factor. Now he said, listen, if I heard that you were a big hoe bag and you were just throwing your vagina everywhere, and then you had a bunch of children behind that, or I heard you slept with one of my homeboys, or whatever the case may be, like something that would impact him and his stature among men, I think maybe that matters. Is that it, guys? Is it that if you're with a woman who's perceived as 304, as Rob would say, a 304, that it impacts your stature among men? because what kind of man gets himself with the 304? But again, unless her 304 behavior is public, then no one knows. Only you. You'd be the only person who would be aware of her sexual past. So again, I get again, if she's a public 304, if you get with some of these 304s that are very public on social media and people are writing about them and they change men like they change underwear and there's always something about them and it's not anything positive, getting with that type of woman. But getting with a regular, average, everyday working woman in her 30s, early 40s, why do we care how many men she slept with before you? Because again, I don't know many women who are that concerned. Like, I've been with men that I'm sure have slept with triple digit figure women. I am positive. I've been with men that I am positive triple, so there's a 1 in front of, and then another number, and then another number in terms of the women that they've been with sexually. I would bet my next 2 paychecks on it. But I've never asked. I've never thought to be like, so as we're getting to know each other and all of that, how many women have you been with? I think when you're getting to know someone, I think a relevant question is, when is the last time you were intimate with someone? I know that's a question that Kendra G asked on our dating show. I think that is a relevant question. If I'm getting to know a man who is maybe running around sexing down women currently and is saying to me, oh no, I was with a woman just last night and he's on a date with me tonight, that might give me pause. Like, okay, let's dig further into this. Okay, so you're here with me, this woman that you had sex with last night. What's the deal with that? Because I'm trying to that is a relevant pause. But during the getting to know phase, so how much women have you been with your life over 20 something years of having sex? Again, I'm talking to grown people. You guys are 30 something, 40-year-old people, right? Like, we're talking about 20 plus years of having relations. I don't know if that matters. I think we really need to consider, what are the things that we really need to know about people that's gonna make those non-negotiables? Why would body count be a non-negotiable? Again, if there's no impact on your current. The things I think we need to be asking is, a lot of people are sitting around and sleeping with people they barely know without a condom, without no protection. Like, that is relevant. That matters. Screw how many people that they've been with. The fact that you are allowing somebody to just enter you or be entered raw, that you barely know, that is a I think what's more relevant is, when's the last time you had a health check? I have somebody that the other day, a gentleman that I'm talking to, I said, when is the last time you actually went and had a full physical, blah, blah, blah. He screenshotted that thing so fast. And he and I are not in the same country and will not be having relations anytime soon. But he screenshotted me the results with his name and everything on it, because he was like, that is a relevant question. And if you're trying to get to know me and potentially this could lead to something intimate, I think that you should know this. And he was like, a lot of women do not ask me that. But that's important. Not, have they recently had somebody sweat on top of them or sweated on top of somebody without commitment? What does commitment mean to them? What are they looking for in their life? But I always feel like that, how many people you've been with comes from a place of insecurity. Again, I agree with the gentleman who told me that secure people don't ask how many people someone's been with. If you're secure within yourself, why does that matter? I'd really love an answer. Because I'm really trying to think under what circumstances I would ask that question. I will tell you one thing I did say. One thing I did say to my ex, and this was something that we agreed upon, right? Like, I was very big on, I don't care what you did in the past, but you're not about to embarrass me in the present. That is what you're not going to do. And so one of the things I remember even saying to my ex-husband, who I married back in 2008, God, that's many, many years ago, in my 20s. If you're doing something, you need to wrap that crap up before you and I get serious, before I move in with you, before whatever the case might be. Like, wrap it up. Make sure you're tidying your past, making sure that that past is not going to affect us. Do that. And my ex and I talked about the fact that if, God forbid, he had done something or been with someone and that's going to have an impact on us, especially if it was the person was confronting us in public, he needs to whisper something in my ear real quick about what happened, and so that I would not be caught off guard. I think in those situations, yes, conversations do need to be had about your sexual prowess if it's going to impact what you've got going on. But I don't see under any circumstances where finding out how many women my men had been with before matters. I know how many relationships my ex had been in. I was his fourth at 44. He was 44 when we got together. He's 47 now. I was his fourth relationship. That mattered. How many people had you committed yourself to? What are the criteria that you look for in someone before you decide to commit with them? What makes you ready to leave somebody, right? What are your non-negotiables? I think those are perfectly good questions. Is there anything about a person, anything I could do that could turn you off? Like, I think those are great questions. I don't know where in the dating phase and the get to know you phase and where you get through it. So how many people have you had sex with? Tell me about that. Because I just don't know if it's, oh, you're welcome. I just don't know if it, here's the thing. When is it in your best interest to know that information? Like, how does that impact you? Knowing how many people someone has slept with. What is the strategy behind that? I'm putting on like my consulting hat. Like, when I ask questions, I ask questions strategically. I am building a case, whether it's a business case or a personal case, whatever it is. Like, I ask questions because I'm looking for particular answers, because those particular answers are going to get me to make a concise decision on whatever it is that I'm deciding on. So how is knowing how much other people have had sex with, like, how is that in your best interest? I know. I don't think it is. Now, knowing the last time they had sex, knowing their health status, knowing maybe their kinks with sex, knowing their expectations around sex, knowing their experience with sex. I think that's interesting because not everybody has a positive experience about sex. Like, there are a lot of people who have been traumatized with sex. There's a lot of people who have had, unfortunately, incidents that happened with them. I think that's important to know, right? Is there any trauma around it? Do you have a healthy relationship with sex? That's a very good question. A good question is, what's your relationship with sex and intimacy? How do you define intimacy? What does good sex look like for you? What does a good sexual relationship look like to you? I think those are relevant questions. But to throw in, and on top of that, how many people have you had sex with ever? I don't see how that is a relevant question. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Yes, like thank you for agreeing that that's a relevant question and keeping your health check together. Like I think in our big age, right? Like I'm a big grown 43-year-old woman. So if you're coming and dating me and thinking that I've only been with 3 men, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint you. Now, the only men that can claim to actually have sex with me is my daughter's father. We always joke about that. I joke about that with him all the time. I'm like, you're the only man that can ever unequivocally say that we've had sex. Because we have a child. I have one child. I share it with him. That is it. He's the only man who can ever say that he's had sex with me. But to really think that you're coming after I've been married and all the experiencing have been with 3 men, like I think that's crazy. And if that's your expectation, then I'm definitely not the woman for you. But it's always interesting to me that a lot of men want women who are angels but act like whores. So they want this soft, demure, sweet, church-like, Mother Teresa type woman, but they want her to act like Heather Hunter. Was that what her name? The black porn star, and they want her to act like Karen Steffens. What was Karen's name again? What did they call her? Shit. Something throat. I can't even remember. But you want the woman to be demure and sweet and all of those things, but also to like flip around on a pole and drop it straight down on your penis. And you actually can't have both. You can't have both. You really have to pick what you want. And I think it's confusing for some women that, again, men will marry these quote unquote virgin-like women, but end up cheating with or going to the strip club or picking up women off Backpage or whatever the case might be, who sexually please them in a way that they want, because this virgin-like, sweet, demure woman isn't giving you what you want. Superhead. That I was like in my head trying to figure out what Karen Steffens' thing name was. Superhead. So they want a Mother Teresa meets Superhead. And is that possible? Maybe. Is it probable? Probably not. You're just not gonna find that virgin-like woman who you get to deflower, but then is going to turn on her porn star moves on you and hit every innermost desire that you have. Like it's not going to happen. It's just not. It's the same for me as a woman. I can't want a man who was untainted and, has only been with, his high school girlfriend and maybe his ex-wife, but he's going to flip it, turn it, throw me upside down and do all that stuff. Like, that's just damn unreasonable. It's like, it's not going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to read what somebody says. It matters for me at this stage of life because I've gone 7.5 years with this purity check for a new wife, free of any sort of sexual activity as a male, considering myself pure. But are you a virgin, or you said 7 years. So are you a virgin, or you just have decided to be on a celibacy journey? Because that's very different. Like, and we also can't make things up. Like, we don't go from, like, there's no such thing as a born again virgin. Like, ladies, we can steam our vaginas all we want and clear it and cleanse it and put all the herbs you want. That doesn't make the spirit of the old man you made come and you disappear. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, it's not, like, you can't. The only way to not have the men imprint on you is just to not have them penetrate you. Like, we don't get to forget men. We don't get to steam it away and say I'm your pure and I've gotten rid of, like, that's not the case. If you don't want a man to count, just don't have him penetrate you, right? And so this is like, we don't get to rewrite our sexual history. We get to own our sexual history. We get to own the fact that you've had a sexual history. And if you want to be honest, I can respect if somebody wants to be honest and open with their partner. Like, again, my ex was honest and open with me about his relationship with sex, right? What his relationship, what his experiences were like, right? When you are a 12-year-old and you're like 6'5", right? My ex was 6'9", but by the time he was 12, I think he was like 6'4", 6'5". So grown women were throwing themselves at him. So he told me about what that experience was like as a young boy, having grown women throw themselves at him, and what the experience was like when he lost his virginity to an older woman, by the way, because again, he looked like a grown man, and what his experience was like when he left where, the state that he was from and the city that he was from to go on a scholarship and play Division I basketball, and what that experience was like going into a campus with new experiences with different types of women that were not in his neighborhood. And like I said, going overseas, like, we talked about that because those all shaped how he viewed sex, and therefore how he was viewing sex with me. That mattered. How he viewed sex and how he viewed sex with me mattered. That there were things, again, that sexually were just off limits because there were certain things that reminded him of things in his past that he could not associate with a woman that he loved, right? There were certain behaviors he thought, no, those are things that I did with women that I didn't give two shits about. And so we talked about that because, again, that had an impact on what we did. But I never dared to ask him, so how many were they? Like, did you keep count? Like, I don't see how that would serve me any good. Ladies, if I was a woman, I would not want to know. And especially if you're the type of woman who wants to date the over 6 feet, over 6 figures, intelligent, confident, all of those things that we want, right? The man with swagger, the man with all of that. If that's the type of man you want and that's the type of man you get, best believe, sis, he's been with a few women. And for the men, your woman can be sweet and church-like and so forth, but if she is a high desired woman and she's the type of woman that when she walks into a room, men are stopping and staring and all of that, best believe it is very likely that that woman has had her experiences. And I'm not saying she's been flung up and had trains ran in her, but she's experienced. And so to think that at 30-something or 40-something-year-old, if you want a virgin, go get a virgin. But don't get with a woman who you know has had a past and then judge her for that past. Because if purity is what you want, I say go for it. I think if that's what a man wants, if he wants a woman that is pure and demure and all of that, go find that woman. But the issue becomes you find that woman and then you realize that that's not actually the woman you want. You like the idea of that woman, but the reality of that person isn't what you want. I like the idea of certain types of men, but the reality of that man doesn't suit what I have created in my mind. And so we really need to start thinking about how realistic are we with the ideals that we have for our partners. Like, I asked this question and I'm going to ask this question again, like, would you date yourself? It's so interesting that often the people we describe are so very opposite of who we are. And opposites might attract, but you don't get to make certain decisions in your life and then judge other people for making the same. I don't get to be in a space where I have, say, and I do not, but if I had multiple children for multiple men get to then judge a man who comes to me with the same. I mean, I shouldn't judge anybody, but if I definitely can't judge them when I've made those same decisions. And so as a person, as a human, and I'm just going to talk to men, as a man, I think it is completely unfair, even though it's within your right to do so, because you have a right to have your preferences. But I think it is unfair to have a level of expectation from a woman about her past when you chose to be with a woman who had a past instead of choosing a woman who did not. Because the end of the day, as men, you make the choice, right? If I get into another relationship, it isn't necessarily because I chose him. It's because that man saw me, was intentional, saw me as part of his life, pursued the hell out of me, and we got together. That's how this game goes. This is how this relationship game goes. And yes, I can decide for the feminist, yes, but you choose him too. Yeah, I may have chosen him too, but he set sights on me. I get to decide because I have the free will whether I want to be with him or not. But many women are not going to turn down the ideal man of their life who comes to them in the package that they want, who's intentional about them. Like, let's call that. Men are the ones who choose. A man who chooses a wife finds a good thing. Like, that's what the saying said. It's not a woman who finds a husband. Like, that's just, let's stop trying to rewrite how things are done, right? Like, men are the pursuers and they pursue us. So for me, I find it interesting that men would try to pursue women that fit an archetype of a woman that they want, but then judge her based on the fact that she has a past, even though she's the archetype that most men want. And one can only assume that she has some level of a past, right? Like there are not women, a bunch of virgin like Rihannas running around this world. There are not a bunch of women running around looking like Beyonce who are virgins. That's just not the reality. There are not a lot of small waist, big booty, big breasts, intelligent, all like just virgins just sitting around waiting to be deflowered by men. Like, that's not the reality. And if that's what you want, go for it. But I don't think we get to be in a space, everyone, that we make someone have to pay for their past in their present. Like, again, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Unless that past has an impact on your future, like I am not with my ex because his past was impacting our present, and I knew it was going to have a huge impact on our future. And his past included 2 women he had 4 children with combined. That was going to have a huge impact. I could not deal with that. Again, the man could have been with 500 women. That didn't matter to me. But what did matter is I am going to have to live with you and deal with the consequences of these actions that you've made. That's going to have a huge impact on my present and future. And this is how it's going to impact me. Being with 500, could have been with 1,000 women. If that wasn't part of it, we would probably still be together. But that was a part of it. As if you came into my life and I had several children by several different men, yes, that's an impact. But you come to me and I am your ideal type of woman. So if I say I'm with 75 men, you ask and a woman says, okay, I've been with 75 over the last 25 years. I'm just giving out numbers, right? So let's say a woman started having sex when she was 18 and she's 43. And so she says, okay, over 25 years, I had a bit of a wild run in my 20s, settled down. Now I'm completely settled. I've been with 75 men. So that is roughly 3 men a year over 25 years, if I just did my math right, which I did. Okay. So she's been with an average of 3 men a year. She's your ideal woman. She's intelligent. She is a nurturing woman. She is peaceful. She can cook her ass off. Her body is to die for. She is the type of woman who, you know, can help you elevate in life. Like, all of those things are fine, but she tells you that this is her number. You're gonna discount her? I can get that being a bit of a shock. I can understand that being a bit of a like, what the hell? And you start like calculating what I just did. That's an average of 3 men a year, which means that if you take it in quarters, that means that every 4 months for the last 25 years, because I do numbers really quickly, you've been with a different man. To me, unless she has a bunch of children that are hanging on to her based on some of those 75 men, I don't know if it matters. If she has all the other qualities, I know it doesn't matter for me from a man. What does your sexual history in terms of number have to do with me? Now, your sexual history in terms of trauma, God, that has a lot to do. And those are the types of mature conversations I want us to be having. I'm going to go back to it. What's your relationship with sex? What's your relationship with intimacy? How do you define good sex? Are there any traumatic experiences in your life that have happened that I should be aware of that are tied to sex? How do you feel when you have sex? What are things that are off limits? Like, I think those are very more mature conversations to have. I just feel like that body count thing is very childish. Like, I think it's a childish way to approach a relationship. It's not something that I would ever ask, and I don't recommend that it's something that people ask. But I do think the conversation around sex is necessary. Again, we're big people, right? At my big age, to think that I'm not going to talk about sex. I'm absolutely going to talk about sex. I'm going to talk about every aspect of sex. I do absolutely want to know your relationship with sex. I think that's a very mature conversation, because a lot of people have really bad relationships with sex because they have trauma behind sex because of religious reasons, right? Like, I grew up in the church. I used to go to church every single week for years of my life into my, I'd say, mid-20s. From I was a child to probably my mid-20s, I can say I was at church every single week. Maybe I missed a week here and there, but I was in church. And sometimes when women grow up in the church, their relationship with sex is interesting because sex is seen as a bad thing, right? It's not talked about in a very positive way. It's something that you do between a man and a woman. It's something that you do between husband and wife. And if you do anything else outside of that, you're basically a slur and you're going to be damned to hell. And there's certain acts that you don't do and all of those things. So are some guilt for especially young girls who grow up in church. Sometimes there's guilt behind that. Knowing that is important. Understanding that. But a lot of people are running into bed not knowing anything about each other and having people pump and dump in them. Ladies, stop having men pump and dump in with you that you don't even know what their relationship with sex, but how they view sex, how they view intimacy. All of those things are important because that will affect the type of sex he gives you. Like I said, I will not have any man sweating on top of me for 5 to 10 minutes who does not care about me after he comes. That's more important to me than body count. Does that man care about you after he comes? Does that man view sex in a positive way? Is that man a selfish lover? How does he even define the idea of a selfish lover? What's that mean? It's intimacy and foreplay and all of those things matter. Like, that matters. We really need to start, again, at our big ages. We really need to start having the conversations that really matter and stop looking at surface level things that really have no real world impact on the type of relationship that we're going to end up having. We need to ask questions and need to have conversations that are actually going to have real impact on the type of life that you can build with someone. I know that I'm guilty of missing some of those. I haven't always asked all of the right questions. And sometimes you can actually ask all of the right questions and still life happens and it doesn't work out. But I am going to encourage everybody to go deep and not let somebody go deep in you before you've gone deep enough with them that you can trust them with all of you. Again, I'm in a place where I'm in this in-between phase of life because I am physically out of a relationship and still emotionally connected to my ex. And so I will not get physical with anybody else until I've emotionally disconnected from my ex. And even though I know I don't want to be with my ex, I cannot be with somebody else having that emotional tie still to my ex. And so I am 6 months and counting of being with anybody because the last person I was with my ex. And until somebody comes in my life that I feel is worthy of the trust that I need to give somebody in order for them to penetrate me in that way, it's locked up for business. So who gives a crap how much bodies they have behind them? Should they be laying down with you? That should be your concern. Should this person be laying their body beside yours? Cares about the other bodies they were with. Are they trustworthy? Are they respectful? Again, ladies, after he sweats on top of you, will he care about you after he comes? Let's not ask like, we're too old for this, people. We're too old for this body count discussion. I wanted to have it today because I thought it was an important one, but we're too old. 30s, 40s, 50s. This is not, you're not a little pitney, right? You're not a teenager. You're not even in your early 20s where you're going through and experimenting and you're still not sure about yourself and there's so much insecurity and unsurety in your life. At this big age when we've had careers and homes and experiences and seen the world, some of us, and traveled and so forth, if that's a determining factor in you being with someone, I think you really need to look in that and ask why. And ask yourself, what's your relationship with sex? Why does that matter to a person? Again, I've never asked it, and I don't know if I get asked it, if I would tell the truth. I have to be honest. It's not that I'm ashamed of my past. It's that I would have to look at the person's sideways. Like, why does that matter? Because I know the quality of woman that I am. I know what I can bring to a man's life. I know what I have brought to men's life. And that has nothing to do with my sexual explorative days. And if that's what's gonna matter to you, then I think we're just incompatible and we can go on their way and you can find a woman who's more compatible with how you view sex in a relationship. Like, I'm not for you and I'm okay with that. Anywho, I appreciate all of you who answered the poll. And so people were clear on what the poll revealed. 91% of you said body count doesn't matter. Only 9% answered that it did. So clearly my audience is mature and having conversations that are going to change the conversation around Black relationships. I want to thank all of you who are here to see me tonight. Again, you could be anywhere else, but you're here with me. Thank you for those who were commenting and liking. I appreciate you. Please make sure that you are subscribing on YouTube and following me on Instagram. So please subscribe and like this video and follow me on Instagram. Please share, let people know about Fuck Your Feelings and that I am here changing the conversation around relationship. And hopefully I will be able to change my relationship status soon. I'm just saying. But I will see you guys next week. Until then, make sure that you're watching all the clips that I put on. Like, share, subscribe. Bye. And bye.